4 hydrogen bombs fell on a quiet Spanish village, and one of them vanished beneath the sea. In 1966, a U.S. bomber broke apart in midair, scattering nuclear weapons across Europe. 2 of them ruptured on impact, spreading plutonium dust over farms and homes. But the 4th bomb disappeared. For 80 days, the United States hunted for a missing nuclear weapon, while trying to keep the world from finding out just how close we came to a catastrophe. At the height of the Cold War, the United States lived under a single unspoken rule: never allow a moment of vulnerability. Every hour of every day, American bombers armed with nuclear weapons circled the globe. The mission was called Operation Chrome Dome, and it was designed to guarantee that if the Soviet Union ever launched a surprise attack, the United States would still have nuclear firepower in the air, ready to strike back. These flights were constant. Crews rotated in and out, bombers refueled in midair, sometimes multiple times on a single mission. It was a routine so familiar that many pilots could perform it half asleep. But routine doesn't mean safe. And on January 17, 1966, one of those refueling operations went catastrophically wrong. A B-52 bomber approached a KC-135 tanker over the coast of Spain. The sky was clear, visibility was perfect, nothing suggested danger. But as the bomber closed in, it came in just a little too fast. The refueling boom operator tried to correct, but there was no time. The boom struck the bomber's fuselage, tearing open the aircraft in an instant. What happened next was a fireball so bright it was seen from the ground. The tanker exploded first, its fuel igniting in a massive flash. The B-52 broke apart seconds later, scattering debris across miles of coastline. 7 crew members were killed instantly, and 4 hydrogen bombs, each one capable of leveling a city, began falling toward the earth. The men who survived the explosion parachuted into a world they didn't recognize. Burning metal rained down around them. Smoke drifted across the sky, and somewhere below, 4 nuclear weapons were plummeting toward the villages and farmland of southern Spain. As the wreckage descended, the bombs separated. Each followed its own trajectory, carried by wind, gravity, and the violent forces of the explosion. 2 of them slammed into the ground near the small farming village of Palomares. 1 plunged into the Mediterranean Sea, and the 4th vanished completely. People in Palomares had no warning. One moment the morning was calm, the next the sky was filled with streaks of fire. Villagers watched pieces of the B-52 tumble downward, trailing smoke. They heard explosions echo through the hills. Some thought a war had begun. Others believed a meteor had struck the earth. Then came the dust cloud. When the first bomb hit the ground, it detonated its high explosive trigger. Not the nuclear core, but enough force to tear open the casing. A massive plume of dust rose into the air, drifting across fields of tomatoes, alfalfa, and citrus trees. Minutes later, a second bomb ruptured as well, releasing another wave of dust. No one in the village knew what they were breathing in. Children ran toward the crash site out of curiosity. Farmers walked into the fields to see what had happened. Livestock wandered through contaminated soil, and all the while microscopic particles of plutonium, one of the most dangerous substances ever created, were settling onto the land. By the time American troops arrived, the situation was already spiraling. The Air Force quickly realized they weren't just dealing with a crash. They were dealing with a radiological disaster on foreign soil in a NATO-aligned country at the height of the Cold War. And the world had no idea. When the bombs ruptured, they released plutonium, an element so toxic that even a single particle lodged in the lungs can remain radioactive for thousands of years. The Air Force had trained for nuclear accidents, but no amount of preparation could fully account for what they found in Palomares. Soldiers swept the area with Geiger counters, watching the needles slam into the red. Entire sections of farmland lit up with radiation. The contamination wasn't contained to a single impact point. It had spread across hundreds of acres, carried by wind and dust, settling into soil, crops, and water sources. The U.S. military moved quickly. They cordoned off fields. They burned contaminated vegetation. They scraped layers of soil into barrels. But the more they cleaned, the more they realized the scale of the problem. Plutonium had drifted into irrigation channels. It had settled onto rooftops. It had coated the clothing of villagers who had walked through the dust cloud without knowing the danger. Spain demanded answers. Farmers wanted to know if their land was safe. Parents wanted to know if their children had been exposed. But Washington downplayed the severity, insisting the situation was under control. Behind the scenes, however, internal reports painted a far more alarming picture. The contamination was widespread. The cleanup would take months. And the political fallout, if the truth became public, could be catastrophic. The United States was desperate to contain the story before it reached the global press. But there was one problem they couldn't hide. One of the bombs was missing. The missing bomb was the nightmare scenario. A hydrogen bomb had fallen into the Mediterranean Sea and disappeared without a trace. No debris, no parachute, no impact crater, just gone. The U.S. Navy launched one of the largest search operations in its history. Dozens of ships formed a grid along the coastline. Helicopters flew constant patrols. Sonar teams mapped the seafloor, scanning for anything that resembled the shape of a nuclear weapon. The CIA monitored every movement, terrified that the Soviet Union might learn of the accident and attempt to recover the bomb themselves. Days passed, then weeks. The search area grew larger and deeper. The pressure from Washington intensified. Losing a nuclear bomb was unthinkable. Admitting it to the world was even worse. Finally, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a Spanish fisherman named Francisco Simo. He reported seeing a parachute drifting into the water on the morning of the crash. His account was precise. He knew the coastline better than anyone. Using his description, search teams narrowed the grid. 80 days after the disaster, a deep-sea submersible finally located the bomb. It was resting nearly 3,000 feet below the surface, perched on a steep underwater slope. The bomb was intact, but the recovery would be dangerous. One wrong move could send it sliding into deeper water, possibly forever. The first attempt failed. The bomb slipped from the recovery cable and tumbled down the slope. Panic spread through the command center. If it fell any farther, it might never be found again. But on the second attempt, the submersible managed to secure the weapon. Slowly, carefully, the bomb was lifted toward the surface. When it finally broke through the waves, the relief was overwhelming. The missing hydrogen bomb was recovered, but the crisis was far from over. While the Navy searched the sea, the Air Force faced a different crisis on land. Plutonium contamination stretched across hundreds of acres. The U.S. quietly removed more than 1,400 tons of radioactive soil, packing it into sealed barrels and shipping it to a disposal site in South Carolina. Spain was furious. Farmers demanded compensation. Politicians demanded transparency. But Washington insisted the situation was contained, even as internal reports revealed the contamination was far worse than publicly acknowledged. Diplomats scrambled to control the narrative. They negotiated payouts. They issued carefully worded statements. They tried to reassure the public while avoiding any admission of fault. Behind closed doors, however, officials debated how much information to release and how much to bury. Declassified documents later revealed the extent of the cover-up. Reports were softened. Radiation readings were adjusted. Entire sections of internal memos were redacted. The United States was determined to prevent the incident from becoming an international scandal. But the truth had a way of resurfacing, and the people of Palomares would live with the consequences long after the cleanup crews left. Decades later, Palomares is still living with the consequences of the disaster. Some areas remain contaminated. Radiation levels in certain fields are higher than they should be. Residents have reported health issues for years, and Spain continues to pressure the United States to finish the cleanup once and for all. The land that was once scraped and sealed has been monitored repeatedly. Soil samples have shown lingering traces of plutonium. Some sections of the village remain fenced off, inaccessible to the public. And every few years, the issue resurfaces in diplomatic discussions, only to fade again without resolution. For many in Palomares, the disaster never truly ended. It simply became part of their history, an event that shaped their lives, their land, and their relationship with the United States. And even today, parts of the incident remain classified. The full extent of the contamination, the internal debates, and the political decisions made behind closed doors may never be fully known. But one thing is certain, the Palomares incident was not an isolated event. It was part of a much larger pattern, one that reveals just how close the world came, again and again, to nuclear catastrophe. Because here's the part almost no one knows. Palomares wasn't the only broken arrow. The United States has lost nuclear weapons in oceans, in swamps, in remote forests, and some of them were never recovered. One bomb lies buried beneath the coast of Georgia, still missing to this day. Another was lost in the icy waters of Greenland. Others were dropped, damaged, or nearly detonated in accidents the public never heard about. Each incident tells a story. Each one reveals a moment when the world came closer to disaster than anyone realized. And one of those stories was far more dangerous than Palomares. That story is next.